So, this next video on the season Dealing with Yourself, the 18th episode, is going to be a bit heavy. It's going to be about topics that normally we don't like to talk much, but they are extremely necessary, above all because they will determine most probably the course of our lives. And they are normally delicate topics. They are normally topics that touching deep wounds of us, things that we don't want to bring to the surface. We want to leave them hidden, buried, or whatever it is, as long as it's far from us. But we really need to deal with them if we want to live a better, healthier life from the mental perspective, from the spiritual perspective, so to say. We're going to talk about traumas in childhood, things that you have suffered that have left a deep wound, a deep scar on your soul, on your heart, and that are very deeply buried in the muscle memory of your body, in your heart, in your memories, and so on. And even though sometimes you don't want to accept it, it's there, or they are there, depending on how many situations you've been through. And why would I like to talk about that? Because I have met a lot of people in this life that clearly suffered from traumas in their childhood. And what am I calling childhood here? I'm calling from the moment you are born until you are more or less 16, 17 years old, okay? Because this is a period of formation, and above all, the first years, 10, 11 years, they are crucial to the outcomes of your life and to the things that you will do, become, decide, and whatever. And you don't even need to believe in psychoanalysis, in Freud's theory, or anything like that. You just need to look honestly at yourself, to your past, to your actual decisions, attitudes, and behaviors, and make the links. You will need a lot of openness to do it. You will need a lot of transparency with yourself. You will need to look deeply at yourself in the mirror and admit certain things. And if you are able to do them, if you are open enough and brave enough, because you will need a lot of courage to do them, if you're able to do them, if you're open and brave enough to do them, you are going to see that a lot of things that you are in this moment in your life are linked to things that happened to you in the past. So I have met, for example, violent people that had been through a violent childhood. Parents, a lot of bullying at school or whatever that took them to a violent environment. And nowadays they are violent people, either through words or actions or even physical attitude, physical aggression. I have met people that had alcoholic parents and they became alcoholic themselves, repeating the pattern. I have met people that went through a crazy childhood because the parents were nuts, literally, they were mad, they were crazy people. And nowadays, these people are crazy, nuts, just like their parents. And I really don't think that this is a DNA question. I really think this is a environment question. This is a surroundings question. This is totally dependent on the ambience you live and not on the DNA or the genetic code of your family or anything like that. I really don't believe that. I think that if you've been through a difficult childhood, you should kind of know it. Maybe you don't recognize it. Maybe you think it's normal and that everyone went through the same. But when you get to know people, you get to talk to them, and you listen to the stories of their families, of their childhood, of the environment they've lived when they were kids, and you notice the huge differences between those childhoods and your childhood, between those teen ages and your teen ages. You have to recognize that there is something that is not fitting in here, something that doesn't match. And what normally doesn't match is you've been through a terribly traumatizing childhood, teenage, with horrible parents, with horrible colleagues, without friends, isolated or not isolated, but in a horrible environment, and you've lived bad situations such as chemical dependency on your family, or violent behavior, or sexual abuse, or even not in your family, but you had a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you went through a very traumatic situation with this person, all that will have an influence in the later stages of your life, whether you want to accept it or not. It's simply the way things happen. And now you ask me, well, then life is defined. There is nothing to be done. I've been through that. It's going to mark me for the rest of my life. I will just accept it passively and live on with the situation the way it is. No, not necessarily. There are things you can do. Actually, you are the only person who can do something. Never expect other people to save you, to heal you, to help you coming out of that bad situation, because if it does happen, it's going to be the exception of the exception. It's going to be like the less than 1% of the cases. In the other 99% of the cases, or even more, you are going to have to do something, and still it's going to be very difficult. You're going to need a lot of maturity, like I spoke on the last video. Actually, you need maturity for basically everything in life. And if you're not able to mature, to become responsible, to become serious when it's important to be serious, to be cold-blooded when you need to make important decisions, it's going to be difficult for you. But if you manage to do these things, there are lots of things that you can do in order to change a little bit your destiny, to change a little bit the outcome of your life, and the behaviors that you should, in theory, acquire after going through such a bad childhood and formation years. What you have to do is first identify and recognize those things. And I've already said, look at yourself in the mirror, or meditate, or look at yourself with eyes closed in your bed, thinking of it, and consider what you have been through and the patterns of your behavior now. Try to find the patterns, because they exist, and you are going to notice that they can be shockingly repetitive, similar, almost identical, and that your reactions also can be like that. So if you identify that, if you manage to find that, to recognize that pattern, that repetition, that thing that is always happening in your life, the kind of people you are always involving yourself with, the outcome of these relationships, the way you behave in similar scenarios, or the same behavior in different scenarios, you are going to be able to identify that a little bit. Then you are going to need at least two things that I can come up with in the moment. The first thing you are going to need is you are going to need to strengthen your soul, to strengthen your mind. How do you do that? How does that happen? What can you do in order to strengthen your mind, to defend yourself from yourself, to learn how to deal and control your bad behaviors, your bad patterns? You are going to have to find activities that demand a lot from you, in all senses, but that basically will require from you in order to accomplish them, in order to do them well. Discipline, patience, time investment, concentration, maturity, and a bunch of other things that I cannot come up with now, but these elements that I have just named now, 5 or 6, they should be more than enough for you. You are going to need that. You are going to urgently come up with something that is going to demand that from you. It can be a physical activity. It can be a martial art. It can be a difficult language that you want to learn, a musical instrument, a dance, something that is going to require from you a lot of discipline, concentration, that is going to make you become detailist, demanding, picky with every single detail, perfectionist, and so on. These things are going to help you. Besides that, I would strongly recommend, as I would strongly recommend in basically any scenario, that you read good books. The traditional classics of literature and philosophy, both of the West and of the East. If you put classical literature, classical philosophy on Google, you are going to come up with the most important material you can get. Plato, Aristotle, Hegel, Kant, Descartes, Nietzsche, Marx, Bachelard, Sartre, Heidegger, and so on. If you search for literature, you're always going to come up with the Greek authors of theater or of poetry, like Homer, Hesiod, Sophocles, Euripides, and so on. If you come to later stages, you're going to come up with Goethe, Balzac, Victor Hugo, and many other authors. I cannot even remember all of them, Dante Alighieri and so many others. And Dostoevsky, of course, never forget Dostoevsky. And you are going to see that these people, they are always going to bring you excellent content that is going to be useful for you for the rest of your life, because they have read the human soul, they have found patterns in the human soul, they have described crucial situations and ideal models, so to say, of being, of behaving, of existing, that you will feel sooner or later identified with. Not necessarily with the main character, not necessarily with the main story, but you will always find yourself identified somehow with that. And those are things that we are probably going to be able to discuss for the rest of our eternity, for the rest of the existence of life on Earth and so on, because they are really, really, really immortal sources of knowledge and inspiration and so on. Once you manage to do these things, you are going to have to be very vigilant of yourself, trying to get involved and trying to get surrounded by people that can help you somehow, having references and examples that will lead you in changing your behavior, lead you towards the right direction. Let's put it this way, the direction that you want to go, a better direction for yourself, a healthier direction for yourself and for others that get involved with you. If you manage to do that, to get surrounded by the right people and get inspiration from them and control yourself, there is a chance, I'm not going to say little, good, big, or whatever, but there is a chance that you are going to be able to change certain patterns. I cannot tell you, promise you, or guarantee you that it's going to work, that is going to change everything, that you are going to become a completely new being. These are things that happen in exceptions, in rare cases. But the mere fact that you make the effort, that you try, that you strive to make that change, that you do everything that you can and maybe a bit more in order to change a possible bad destiny that you could have, is already going to help you a lot. What you want to avoid at all costs is to just accept that you have lived in a broken family, with a horrible childhood, with zero support, with no encouragement from your family, not learning good values, not learning how to behave in the world, not learning how to deal with people, not learning how to approach the person you are interested in, and basically not receiving any kind of important orientation for life, and simply accepting this destiny and simply accepting that now you are a completely broken human being, an incomplete human being, someone without orientation, someone without perspectives in life and so on, and that you should simply return to the world, return to life what you got. No, you don't need to be like that. You don't need to do that. That is not the best solution for you and for others. If you just received harm, damage, attack, and bad things from life, you don't need to return that. You are totally able, with the right amount of effort, with the right orientation, with good surroundings, and above all, strong mind, strong heart, strong soul that you can build up little by little. It's not going to happen tomorrow, next week, or next year, but you can build that. I'm totally sure that it is possible to operate certain changes in your life. Be patient, be brave, try to find the right material to feed yourself from. I gave you some orientation. There is much more besides what I gave. And there is a chance that your life can still be good, well lived, and that you can relate above all to other people in a better and healthier way. Don't let the kid, the broken kid, the damaged kid inside of you reign and be sovereign and control the decisions of a 30, 35, 40, 50, or even more years old adult. See you next time.